recently came across this review by Jill on TripAdvisor, and it reads as: I was strolling down Whitehall on a recent visit to London, and I was passing the cenotaph, and I was surprised to see a large black monument in the middle of the road. I had not heard about this being unrevealed, so it was completely new to me. I was dumbfounded as to what it was and whom it was dedicated to until I drew level with it and saw the inscription. I was very shocked to see this, commemorating the very brave work of all those supportive women by clothes hanging up on pegs. As my late mother was one of these women, I could not think she would have been impressed. At first it was hard to make out what these clothes were, and for an awful woman, I thought they were bodies hung up. Is this the best they could have thought of? I can appreciate the skill of the sculptor, but what a lame idea. The women deserve better. I then continued scrolling down the page, and people called it forgettable and ugly. If you haven't already caught on to what I'm talking about the Women of World War II sculpture in the middle of Whitehall, just behind the cenotaph. It's horrible. I hate it. Every time I walk past it, my insides cringe. I hate it. And this video is going to be me explaining why I hate it, the history behind it, and what I think the solution is, because I'm not just going to complain about something and not give a solution. But let me explain why I hate it first. So number one, it is so ugly. It is horrible looking. If you compare it to all the beautiful white buildings, the War Office that sits just behind it, you've got banqueting hall, you've got the guardsmen, it's this horrible black plinth amongst these beautiful white ornate buildings. It looks like something Elon Musk would make. It's just disgusting. I hate it. It's horrible to look at. Number two, it is always forgotten about. No one ever talks about it. And I think the reason for that is because of the way it looks. Whenever you see a November 11th remembrance ceremony there, which is where all of them, like kind of the main one takes place in the UK, it's always televised. It's hardly ever shown. And it's only ever shown either as a brief montage with someone laying a wreath there, or as a drone shot. Like, it's just accidentally caught in the background. Like, what? Why are we not talking about this? It's right next to the cenotaph. It should be included, but it's not. Number three, what is it actually supposed to be showing? Why the hell are we using clothing to symbolise women? Oh, women love buying clothes. Oh, but we didn't have clothes during World War II to buy because nylon was used in the military, so you couldn't buy clothes. You had ration clothing, so you literally had tokens to buy clothes. So that's not the right messaging we should be sending. Oh, but it's their uniform, and they hung up their uniform at the end of the war to go back to be mothers and caretakers. What? That is not the sentiment we should be showing, because many of the women actually continued in their roles after the war. Why are there no names? Why are there no faces? I understand logistically we can't show them all, but why? Why not? I don't like the clothing symbolism. It feels very stereotypical, in my opinion. Some of you might not agree with me with that. That's okay. But I just don't love it. I need to stop complaining and actually talk about the history, because that's more important, in my opinion, than my opinions. We need to actually go back to talk about the cenotaph, the very beautiful one, the one I like, and why it was put there in the first place. So basically, after the war, there was a very big sentiment of the fact that we need to remember the people who fell, but also, more importantly, the relationships we created. There was a very big emphasis on things like we need to celebrate camaraderie and those who fell, and instead of remembering for their death, we need to remember them for the life they had and the friendships they built and the way they spent their last moments rather than their actual death. So in 1919, during the first of what were to become remembrance ceremonies, there was a big white plinth put in the middle of Whitehall, and they called it the cenotaph, but instead of being made out of stone, it was made out of plaster, it was made out of paper mache. It wasn't built to last, it was built to just be put there as a ode to the men temporarily. However, people absolutely loved it. And during the Remembrance Parade, there were so many people who were there to look at this sculpture, they actually had to reroute the parade from where it was supposed to be going, because there were so many people crowding the cenotaph. They thought it was just amazing. But you can't just take things that are so poignant to the public away from them. So what did they do? They decided to get a sculptor, and they made a proper one. They made it out of stone, and they erected it in 1920, as well as the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Westminster Abbey. And over 1.25 million Brits on that singular day, on the 11th of November 1920, came to see both of those. That is a lot of people. I do want to go back to the idea that these memorials, both of them, are not actually about the dead. That might be a controversial take, because of course they're about the dead. It's about remembrance. Back in the day, the statistic that blows my brain is that actually only 1 in 7 Brits lost a close family loved one. And by close, I mean anything before cousins. So anything that if you were taking a family photograph, one of those people would have died. Only 1 in 7 people experienced that. And when people returned home from the war, people were more concerned about relationships, keeping in touch. There was a lot of use of things like halls for lunches, celebrations, dancing, parties. People would meet back up and share stories. And they wanted to have something to remember them by. And I think that sentiment carried forward to the Women's Memorial, because the Women's Memorial is not actually about their death, it's about their service. We're going to go back to the women. So remember, the cenotaph was created to remember those lives lost, but also the relationships built and camaraderie and the nature of what was going on around them. It has all these sentiments. Did people consider the women? No, of course they did it. Why would they consider the women? Women, we don't need to think about them. During World War I, and not as much as World War II, but still to some extent, they played more of this damsel in distress role. Men would go off to war with an image of their wife or their daughters in their wallet and go, I'm coming back for you, baby. I'm fighting this war to keep you safe. That's not entirely true. There were women on the front lines, like Fanny, which were a part of a medical unit. You had, in World War II, you had women in intelligence. Throughout both World Wars, you had women filling the roles of the men who went off to war and then were just expected to get on with it. Because I think the reason why women weren't celebrated as much, because women have forever been expected to just pick up after the men and just do what they've been doing already, but just do the additional work of the men. When it came to building a memorial for them, people were just like, oh, well, the women were doing the men's role, they were cleaning up after them, they were doing their jobs, it was just expected. Oh yes, the millions of women that went into work wasn't expected, but it's more of the nature that women filled positions that men either couldn't do in those moments, or historically women have just picked up after those. And I'm not criticising that. That's not what I'm criticising, because that's within what the social context were. We can't change the social context. I'm simply saying the women picked up after men because that was what they were told to do, and that's what they have been doing for millennia. But my problem is, why wasn't this recognised until 2005? That is when this monument was erected. So why? Why did it take so long for women to be recognised only for their role in the Second World War? Granted, women didn't have too much of a role during the First World War, but they still had a role. I listed Fanny. They did things on the home fronts. They kept the factories going. They made sure that all the kids are okay. In the Second World War, they helped with the transport and evacuation of children. I could go on and on forever. Intelligence, agriculture, factories, home life, propaganda. Women were involved in that. They weren't isolated from it. They were involved. But why did it take so long for them only to be recognised for the Second World War? Yes, not as many in the First World War, but I think they still should be recognised. I know people are going to get frustrated and they're going to go, well, women did less. Ugh. Sure. But when we look at the Second World War, over 6 million women helped in civilian defences, things like fire watching, things like Dig for Victory, helping with schools, like I said, evacuations. Women helped with all of that. It's not like they were just invisible. Then again, I can understand why you would think this, because women actually only make up 1% of recorded history. I want to change that as much as I can and talk about women more, but it's incredibly hard when you've got people going, oh, well, they did less. Sure, they didn't have guns in their hands, but they still kept their economies going. But let me actually tell you about the creation of this monument, because I just think it's hilarious. I recently went on a walking tour around Westminster. It was really lovely. It was voiced by Stephen Fry, and I'm going to read out what Stephen Fry said about this monument. I'm going to do it in my best Stephen Fry voice.
To your right, you will see a monument in the middle of the road with coats and hats hanging off of it. This is the monument to the women of World War II, which was erected in 2005. It's a sister monument to the cenotaph, which we passed earlier. The lettering at the bottom imitates the font used on ration books. The monument was partially funded by the first female Speaker of the House of Commons, Baroness Betty Boothroyd. She won some of the donation money by playing the TV show game Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Rather than depicting a single woman, the memorial shows 17 different sets of uniforms represented by all roles women took part in during the war. The sculptor, John W. Mills, was inspired by a photograph of coats hanging up in a dance hall during the war. When it was unveiled, Lady WWII loved it and said it depicts the women's working clothes and how they quietly took them off at the end of the day and hung them up and let the men take credit.
What do you mean the men take credit? What do you mean? Oh, that makes my heart hurt. These women should be celebrated for what they did. Oh my god. So the sentiment of Lady WWII that she was apparently happy with, you could either take it two ways. She was happy with the fact that the men got the credit for the work the women did, or that she was happy with women letting men take the credit, if that makes sense. They're slightly different. I don't like that. I, even back in the 1940s, would have been annoyed if a man took the credit for the job I did. Okay, for example, the Enigma Code. The backbone of that, the cracking of that, was women. And no one talks about that. Here, go read this book. It's excellent. I got it sent to me. It talks all about it. The women were the ones who did 90% of the work, and the men took all the credit, as always. Yes, while many women did return back to more maternal roles, many didn't. And the World War II is credited in a lot of countries of being kind of the start of this. Yes, well, you had first wave feminism before the war, all the way to the 1880s, probably even before that 1860s, going all the way up to the First World War, and arguably the First World War being a contributing factor as to why they got the vote. The Second World War opened up a huge amount of economic and professional opportunities for women, including things like having very high up positions in places like intelligence, or I keep going back to intelligence because that's the one where women were in so frequently. Women weren't just excluded to jobs like teaching or very religious roles that they were typically, where it was very, I wouldn't call it matriarchal, but it was typical for women to go into those jobs. Women could now go into those white collar working professions, not as secretaries, but actually as women in roles which would show them to be we're not in the girl boss shoulder pad 80s era yet, but we are in an era where women are challenging the expectations of saying, you know what, maybe I could be a manager on something and not just be a man. Because during the war, I organised all of my estate's allotments, or I ran train lines and I organised traffic in the darkness when it was during the Blitz. Like, stuff like this. Like, oh, it frustrates me so much. Unfortunately, the monument doesn't depict the reality for all women. But also, unfortunately, I think the memorial is held to too high of a regard. When I was doing some research for this, I found out that it ranked place 350 out of 3,647 things to do in London, and it has a 4.3 star rating. I'm clearly in the minority, and that's okay. You're allowed to be in the minority with opinions like this, because these opinions don't matter. And the monument does depict what the average person knows. The women took their coats off, they hung them up, the men then took back the jobs, and women went back to being mothers and carers. That is what the average person knows, but I am not the average person when it comes to this knowledge, and it frustrates me. And I would understand that this is a very common pattern with, say, if, I don't know, you study things like Anglo-Saxons and Vikings and stuff, and you start seeing inaccurate clothing, you're gonna get annoyed. So I feel your pain. I hate that it only remembers women from World War II. I hate that the fact that we've changed it, because originally the cenotaph was only to remember people from World War I, but then we changed that to remember all conflicts, and instead of calling it Armistice Day, we changed it to Remembrance Day. Why can't we do that with this other memorial? I understand those uniforms are specific to World War II, but it's for women. It's on one of the busiest, biggest, most important roads in London. Why can't we do that? I know a lot of you will have rolled your eyes at this video, and I know a lot of you will be frustrated at it, and I can understand that. A girl with blue hair is complaining about gender inequality. Oh my god, what is new? But I'm also a woman who is getting a history degree and also writing a book about this kind of stuff. I think I have a word I can put in about it. All I'm trying to draw your attention to is the immense amount of women this should represent, but doesn't. It doesn't represent the over 400,000 women in the military during this time. It doesn't represent the 6.5 million in civilian work. It represents women abandoning work because men are forcing them to. Now, is it a commentary on men? I don't know. I think we're more focusing on the female aspect of it. But it's focusing on the wrong parts of what women did. And I hate that. So what is the solution I'm going to propose? I don't know. I tricked you. I don't have a solution. I would like there to be a completely new one. I would like it to fit in with the white surroundings. I would like it to reflect the cenotaph. I would actually like it to feel like a sister monument. I would like there to be maybe some names, some faces. Obviously, we can't single them out, but maybe one face from each line of work. Maybe a nurse, a ration officer, a communications person, all women. Maybe just one. From all multiple different ethnic, class, country backgrounds. Include them. Please. Like the ones where there's one by St. Paul's where it's all about the fire brigade. It includes all names. Obviously that would be impossible with 6.5 million, but it includes all names. Men using a fire hydrant, a hose, and they're getting rid of the fire. It's a nice ode to them. This is not an ode to women. This is I wouldn't even call it brutalist. It's it feels like a skid mark. I hate it. It's not offensive, but it feels offensive to me because I'm like, it's just so ugly. Women are beautiful. Why are we giving them the ugly monument? It fits in the same category as, I don't know, this might be niche. On Strand, there is a statue apparently of Oscar Wilde, but it's not even of Oscar Wilde, and it's not even dedicated to him. It's by this random sculptor who wrote a poem, but then, I don't know, I'll just put it here. It's really weird. It's ugly, it's horrible, and it's supposed to be of this really flamboyant, beautiful poet. What? It fits into the same category. I'm sorry to Mills who sculpted this, and I'm sorry to those who love it. We can do better. It's 2026. We can make things beautiful, and we can make things meaningful. And sorry if this upset you, but it's just an opinion, and that's okay. If you need someone to redo it, I can do it for you. I know how to do a good paper mache. But thank you so much for listening to me whinge and whine about this. I hope it's brought a bit more perspective into monuments and how they can be divisive, but they can also be very impactful. I talk about in a video 2 weeks ago about the installation of the poppies in Tower of London. That was done excellent. This has been done awful. And maybe in the future, it probably won't, but maybe in the future it can be changed. But thank you so much for watching. Click any of the buttons you see, just anything. Go follow me on Instagram, that's where you'll see updates of my life, lots and lots more history than just once a week. Also see updates about my book that's coming out, keep your eyes peeled about that. And thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely rest of your day.